Hello, this is Castle of Castle Does, Episode 8. I got some UT4 action going on here, and a lot happens in this video. There's a ton of stuff. I've made a whole bunch of static meshes, a lot of decisions on art direction, and the full layout of the level. Now, none of this is set in stone. The game isn't even alpha yet, so it comes a really long way, but you gotta keep in mind that this is just warming up. So with that said, I'm gonna try and stick to the details, not do a super long silly intro, but I enjoy my silly intros. Okay, so now that I got the silly intro out of my system, the first static mesh that I created was just a simple wall piece that I'm using to place over the front of walls. At this point, it's just experimenting with things and getting a feel for it. This is also the first time I actually had a chance to run around in the UT4 game. Finally was able to get it set up after running it on GitHub, downloading it off of GitHub. So here I am right now reworking everything because the movement was different than what I was originally expecting. The level needed to be smaller. I feel that in order for it to really feel right for a 1v1, the entire level layout needed to be changed. So I'm going over all of that at this point right now, and still just kind of thinking about how I'm going to go about the art style. So the art direction that I want to go with this level is the portal test chamber, and I know I've mentioned this multiple times in previous videos. Is this sort of it's super realistic environment, but it's an artificially created area specifically for deathmatch, like a stadium or something like that. It's a place where people can watch these fights take place, and they're designed with these weirdly shaped hallways and rooms. So that's why I really gravitate towards the portal test chamber idea, and that's why in here I'm very much trying to I'm not worrying at all about whether or not this is going to look like a realistic structure. I'm more worried about making it play really well, in the same way that you do when you're making a portal level. And a lot has actually already happened so far in this early part of the video. Some areas I ended up actually ditching some of the ideas that I wanted to have. I added a new area. I didn't like that one corner at all. I mentioned that there was a corner that I didn't like, and now has become another atrium. So this is a double atrium layout with a figure 8 and 3 dead ends, or 3 one-way paths. One of them is going to be where I want to put the keg of health. Is going to go on the very bottom. I run through the map at super fast speed. I'm just trying to get a feel. Sometimes when you're building levels, you just kind of do this thing where you run around the map just shooting your gun for 30 minutes or something. And you don't know, alright, I kind of want this hallway to be here now. You don't know exactly what you're going to do. It's a very organic process. Getting a layout to feel correct is organic. You don't really know exactly how you want these rooms to be shaped until you've had a chance to kind of flow through them. And that's exactly what I'm going through at this point in time. And I'm pretty happy with the way the layout turned out. I'm going to release this level very soon. Well, probably around the same time I'm releasing the video. So everybody will get a chance. Here is the first time I've created a first dead end, or first one-way path, not a dead end. I keep calling it a dead end. A one-way path that ends up being a lift, and working with a lift was a pretty interesting experience because that was the first time I had a chance to see the blueprint system and really work with it, and it's been really updated. Holy crap, it makes the old school Kismet look like Tinker Toys. As far as I can tell, it's really a way more advanced version of this. So I begin adding the static meshes at this point, and you'll see everything's coming in right here. I have multiple of them, like a single tile, and now I want to do the arch thingies. The arched ceilings end up actually kind of painting this to look a lot more like Quake 3 map. I think in a lot of ways though that my Quake 3 level design is sort of ingrained in my level design style. So here I am building a trim piece that I want to use for on edges, so you have like a little bit of an overhang, and just kind of going through a lot of these meshes. I put them together very quickly, slapped a UV unwrap on them very quickly, because I'm just getting the shapes. That's really my main concern at this point in time, and the UV unwraps are only necessary to make sure that they have light mapping so that light mass doesn't mess up. So I'm just right now just blazing out a whole bunch of just static meshes that I can use. In here I wanted to try and get a curved wall, and the curved wall had to be done multiple times because I didn't get it right the first try. This is a pillar piece that I wanted to have underneath the main atrium, the center atrium of the level. I ended up using it a little bit more than that though. That's one of the things that when you're building static meshes for Unreal style level design, keep in mind that your meshes are going to be used for more than what you think they are. That's why you don't want to have polys missing on lower ends or anything like that, because level designers love to grab these meshes and just sort of smash them into each other to create things that you weren't really thinking they were ever going to be used for. That happens a lot. It happens all the time. It's just part of building this way. So at this point I'm mostly just going in and putting more static meshes in, and the one-way path where you get up top started off as like a jumping puzzle, and those are notoriously awful, especially for a fast-paced deathmatching thing. It quickly died to putting a lift. Lift's like infinitely better. A jump pad would probably even be better than that. I'll end up seeing what I want to do after a little bit. This area right here is where the keg of health will go, is in the very bottom, one-way path. So you jump down from the main area, you can't quite get back up unless maybe you jackhammer jump or figure out some kind of a trick jump to go back up that other way. And I've got a lot more details on the walls, everything like that. So I ended up working a lot with static meshes. I think that, in my opinion, static meshes are the way to go for the most of your details. And the reason why is that they're super efficient. You take one static mesh and you duplicate it multiple times throughout the map. Not only is it more efficient for rendering, but it also is one object that when you make that one object look pretty, you've essentially just gone through your entire map and made each instance of that object look really good. They're just very efficient when it comes to the overall design process. And this actually is a topic that's a little bit more complicated than that too. Mainly one of the things that pops up is a lot of people ask me, oh, you went with static meshes, why didn't you use the brushes? Well, the reason why I would go with the static meshes is only because of that one case of efficiency. The thing about the Unreal Engine, and probably one of its main issues when you're trying to just figure out what you want to do, and I don't know how many people have experienced this other than me. I've seen other people experience this sort of being kind of lost. Like, there are roughly 4 different ways that you can go about building a level in Unreal, and so far the most efficient one I have found is using static meshes as modules. But you can technically build the entire level as one large model, and that works as well. And there are like all kinds of things that you have to keep in mind with that. You have to make sure the collision and everything like that is set up. You can build the entire level with brushes and then use models sparingly. And you can use some brushes here and models as modules here and there. There's just so many different ways to go about building like this. It's actually it's difficult to take the first step. I think when you don't have anything to work with, I feel when compared to anything that's based on the Quake engine. So we can be talking Hammer, we can be talking Left 4 Dead 2, Team Fortress 2, Quake 1 through 3, Quake 4, even Doom 3. You know exactly how you want to build those levels. It's instantaneous. It's a much more efficient process. But when you hit Unreal, the reaction is a completely different experience. Whereas a Team Fortress map, I'm obviously going to build everything with brushes and using models sparingly, right? Quake 3, I'll be using patches and brushes. Same thing with Quake 4, Doom 3. You still have models. Like Doom 3, you'll still have meshes. But when it comes to Unreal, oh, this is interesting right here. I'm building the reflection probes. I'm setting up all the reflection probes using the reflection setting. It makes the entire level look like it's shiny glass, which looks really freaking cool. And one of the details that I'd like to point out, when you're working with reflection probes, make sure you put the reflection probe at eye height so that the reflection represents something that you see when you're standing at eye level. And it's just a general rule when it comes to reflection probes. I call them reflection probes. They exist in every engine. They have all different kinds of names, but basically all they are is objects that sit in the level that give anything that has a reflective surface information to work with from a certain point, rather than trying to do it in real time. It gives environment maps or some variation there of that. But one of the main things that's interesting about level design, oh, here's Kismet. This is the new blueprint system. I built the lift. The process is very different from Kismet, and that it took me a second. I have a feeling there's going to be a lot more to learn, but just getting into that a little bit, I realized how much more powerful that is. Now the hexagons, I'm doing them as modules, and my thought is that the module can have some kind of maybe a triplanar texture so that it doesn't look like it's repeating as much. I'll have to figure out exactly what I want to do, because in all honesty, most of the modules on the floor like that, the hexagons, should just be a floor texture probably. I feel a little bit like next generation stuff though, we should be willing to put more polygons. And that's one of the things that I'm looking at this, and I'm less worried right now about polygons. The poly counts are through the roof, and our computers are more than capable of handling them. I'm not building with the notion that I'm trying to save as many polygons. I want something that's next generation. I want something that, instead of trying to fake everything by baking it into the texture with normal maps and virtual displacement and any of that kind of stuff, why not start getting a little bit more used to taking a lot of those details and actually putting them into the mesh. I know you can easily go overboard with it if you're building with high poly model, but very simple details, chamfering edges and stuff like that, I think it's a good idea to start getting more used to the idea of just going with higher poly objects and utilizing your normal maps only for the smaller details. I think it just makes sense to me, although I might be overestimating what the basic limits are right now, but I want to see next generation stuff. I don't want to try and keep building things as though it's still in the 2000s, which has been something that's been going on for too long. I think there's been a stagnation based basically on console development. And the consoles are a lot more powerful now, so who knows what they can handle once things get fully optimized. I want to see more. So right now I'm building module pieces all in one thing. So I exported a piece of the level so that I could build modules to fit over those pieces perfectly. I took all of the modules and then I separated them to separate files, deleted all the ones that weren't the one that I wanted to currently work on, and then exported it. So now I have these edge piece modules, and it worked out fairly well. So anyway, back to the building with Unreal. I think that's one of the main things that's going to be difficult for some people to get around, is like you're never going to really quite feel like you're building it the right way. I'm looking at the levels that are being built by the other designers that work at Epic right now, the official Unreal maps, and they're being all built with brushes. So you have, not only do you have building things with brushes on Unreal, but you also have the choice between using additive brushes only, or a mix of subtractive brushes, so this makes it even more complicated. So like what I just mentioned about whether or not you're supposed to be using modules or using giant model for the entire level, now you also have the option of looking into dropping one giant brush and doing a subtractive level geometry. If I'm working with level geometry currently right now, Unreal's brush manipulation is not as efficient as it needs to be competitive with editors like Hammer and Radiant. So I work with subtractive brushes because it means that I have less overhead. However, subtractive brushes create all kinds of issues when you just want to select the surface, or you just want to select that one thing. It makes the entire building process a lot less organized. So whenever you work with subtractive brushes, try to keep the brushes very broad, very simple, and then use mostly additive after that. When I look at the levels that they're currently working on right now, I'll see a detail and I'll try to select it, and it turns out that I select the entire room that I'm currently in, and like there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. Once you start mixing additive and subtractive brushes, you just get all kinds of weird stuff, and it's going to be difficult later on to go in and replace brushes with static meshes. It's just a complication. So anyway, at this point in time, I now have the whole level built out, and I have all the player starts. So all of the player starts right now are being placed strategically so that whenever you spawn, you're facing a direction where the player will go forward. And that's one of the most important parts about placing spawn points. Never place a spawn point where a player has to choose if he wants to go left or right, or he has to turn around. When you're dealing with spawn points in arena deathmatch, make sure that the spawn point is facing down a hallway that you're going to be moving. Okay, so like if you place a spawn point and there's like a drop off right in front of you, that's a no-no. You want a clear path, and the reason why you do this with spawn points is just because it takes people a second to realize. You got about 150, 200 millisecond delay where people realize where they are in their new place, right? You got to give them just a little bit of time where they're just going to be running forward. Okay, I got it now. I see where I'm going. And if you force someone to have to make a decision the second they spawn, it's going to be like really crazy for them. It's going to feel really forced, to say the least. So any spawn points that are facing a wall, it's like boom, oh, my face is in a wall. What the hell just happened? Like, or I have to make a choice between left or right. Oh God, I don't know. Maybe people will get used to it after a while, but most of the time, you really just want to have something where you just go where the player dies, and then just holds down the forward key. Okay, all right, and then realizes where he's going, grabs a gun. Try to aim it towards something that's useful. This video ended up being shorter than I was expecting. I guess I could have probably done it. It was only 20 minutes, so I feel like there was so much more. Man, I feel like there was just so much more that I could have talked about. The blueprint system is awesome, and the overall, like, what this engine seems like it can handle is amazing. I wasn't able to record every little thing that I did because I'm having heat issues with my machine, and in this current environment right now, there's not much that I can do. It's a freaking oven in here. It's like 100 degrees, so that's not helping. So, but when it's, you know, colder out, or it's a little bit more chilly, I still end up having to deal with heat issues and stuff like that. This machine, my computer is being pushed pretty hard running this tech, and recording a video at the same time just causes all kinds of issues like that. Okay, so I want to thank everybody for watching, and I will definitely be going into even more detail at a later point. This is going to be my last Castle Does for a little while. I'm going to disappear for a bit because I have to go on a 1,460 mile trip. Yeah, it's going to be an interesting experience, to say the least, and I should be able to get everything all organized. I'm going to be moving out to New York, so with that said, I'm trying my hardest to see if I can find some kind of work or something like that, and I'm definitely going to be putting up information for maybe being able to do freelance level design work or something like that. So I'm going to cross my fingers on that, and hopefully I'll be able to land on my feet when I get out there. Thank you for watching and everything like that. I really enjoy making these videos. One of the coolest things about this, and I didn't really realize how cool making videos like this is when you're doing level design work, is that level design work by itself, when you're just a community level designer and you're just building on your own, you don't get any kind of a gratification until you reach a certain point in the level design process. And now, I mean, sometimes you can get you know, a block mesh and you can play test it and things like that, but a lot of the time you don't really, I find it hard to have like an outlet to be like, hey, look at this, unless it's already a fully playable level with everything kind of in place. It gives me these like mini milestones where I can show off what I'm doing and not have to feel like I have to finish the level before I can really even show it to anybody. So this has actually been really interesting. I can work on, you know, 3 or 4 different levels at the same time and not feel rushed which is insane. Because normally that would drive me up the wall working on like TF2 and a Doom 2 map and yeah, so these videos actually, maybe it's something for other level designers to give it a shot. Like, just record yourself working on stuff. Anyway, thank you, and that's that for now.